Welcome to our Zoom into a Career series, a series designed to introduce students to a culture of high achievement and highlight the many different career pathways that are available to them. I'm Andrew Kohler, the Community Relations Coordinator here at Young Community Schools, and today we have Shane and Tia Brant from Images by Brant Photography Studio here in Yelm, and they're here to tell us a little bit about their career and owning a business. Remember, this Zoom is being recorded and will be posted on our website at a later date. So welcome, Shane and Tia, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. So what do you got for us?
Well, starting off, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Well, we are what we consider high-end portrait photography and event photography. So we specialize in high school seniors, weddings, wedding photography, event photography, and headshots. We do the gamut of people photography, but those are the things we kind of narrowed down as a specialty. Does that sound right?
And I will pull up a couple examples here if I can figure out how to screen share real quick, and kind of we can look through a few pictures and kind of what goes into them behind the scenes.
Sure.
Make it.
So we're a husband and wife photography team. We shoot together, but we also shoot individually. So weddings specifically, Shane and I both shoot together. And then most of our other events, seniors, that sort of thing, Shane is what we call our main shooter. So he does those sort of events. And then I usually assist with those sessions to give input and posing and that sort of thing as well.
And I've had the unique pleasure of actually working with you guys in weddings.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was a great time. And
probably should have sent one of those photos to you.
You should have.
So this is one of our high school seniors. Our sessions are a little bit more involved than some photographers. A lot of planning goes into our sessions. We send out clothing advice. We talk a lot about concept. We really encourage specifically the seniors, but our other clients as well, to have Pinterest boards of ideas so that we can kind of see the vision that they're expecting in their head, and it just helps us to be able to come together with a session that they really are owning and excited about.
Our biggest thing is, and we'll get into this later, but my dad was a high-end portrait photographer, and he got burnt out because he was doing cookie cutter, same thing every day, same poses, basically just insert another person into the same exact fence or a bench or whatever. And my deal is I want to capture the personality of the senior. So it takes a lot more work on our part and the seniors' part than just saying, hey, let's hire these guys and then show up the day of. There's a lot of stuff between deciding to hire us and the shoot time for the session, because there's a lot of planning and a lot of conversations going back and forth, figuring out who they are and what they're excited about and that kind of stuff. That's our passion for all shoots, but the seniors, high school seniors especially, are so unique, and we want to celebrate that. And by doing cookie cutter, I feel like that downgrades how important what they've done is.
And can you take us through the process of when someone first calls you and inquires about a shoot? What is kind of the next steps, and how do you really bring that personality out?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, our senior sessions are a lot more involved than some photographers are. When they call to inquire or send an email or a text message or however they inquire with us, we have them come to the studio, usually with a parent, specifically if we're going to kind of use seniors as an example, to the studio to just chat about ideas, find out what they're into, if they play any sports, if they have a pet that they love or a car that they put a lot of work into. Hobbies, what they do on the weekends, if they're into video games or whatever that specific thing that they spend a lot of time doing or that they're hoping to do in the future. if they play instruments, drama, all those different things, and then just start kind of talking through different ideas if that is something that they want to focus on. Location is a big part of it too, what we talk about in the consultation of, are they more into the urban look, or do they like the waterfront, or do they want to go up to the mountains? Like Shane said, we don't want specifically senior sessions to be the same, even if we do it in the same location. We send out clothing advice. We have them actually bring their clothes to the studio so we can kind of go through and say, this is a good look, this works well. We encourage solid colored clothing so that you're not wearing a bunch of logos and branding that takes away from the portraits that we take. And then once the session is actually shot, we have them come back to the studio again to view the photos and then choose what they would like to order as far as announcements or albums. A lot of our clients, you can see one of our big prints here in the background, it's the city print, but order wall portraits for their walls. And so that's kind of the whole process, start to finish, of the involvement. Like we said, Pinterest is a big part of it so that they can kind of show us what they're visioning in their head, and we can kind of come up with different concepts based off of a jumping point.
And you do a lot of different shoots. I mean, families, weddings, down to high school seniors. And what kind of niche did you start with, and how did it evolve?
You have to give a smaller history. You already mentioned that your dad is a photographer.
So my dad was a high-end wedding and child photographer growing up in Texas, and studying under him and growing up with that, not realizing that was a big deal. But my dad was kind of a big deal in the photography world back then.
And you wanted to do sports.
And I wanted to do beach volleyball photography. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do action beach volleyball photography. And well, I quickly found out that doesn't actually support a family or even a person, because that's a very narrow, not a very monetary wise, it's not very good for a good decision as a career.
So we did photography both part-time before we met. We both worked at camera stores. We knew we had a passion for it. So when we met and got married, it kind of made sense to try doing the business together. So that was 10 years ago this year that we started our business kind of part-time and built into it. And when we started, is kind of what we recommend for a lot of people that are starting out in a business similar to ours or in photography, is to just kind of do a little bit of everything. To do whatever you can get your hands on, just to kind of find out where that niche might be. And it's only in the last couple of years, we've had our studio in Yelm for 4 years now. It's only in the last couple of years that we've really narrowed down the field to know that our passion and what we enjoy, what we do very well, is weddings, high school seniors, and then kind of the corporate event headshots. We still do family photos. We still do real estate photography once in a while, but we are really more passionate about those kind of once in a lifetime experiences that high school seniors and weddings are achieving.
And what kind of important skills are needed to be a photographer and also run a small business in your photography studio?
Well, there's a lot of hidden things to running a business that, to be honest with you, neither of us really realized.
As we talk to a lot of business owners in Yelm that are, smaller startups or family-owned businesses, a lot of times you learn business as you go. And so our biggest recommendation to people that are looking to go into business for themselves, to start up a small business, is to learn the business part of whatever business you're going to be doing. Whether you're going to be a plumber, a welder, a photographer, own a restaurant, those sort of things. It's amazing how much time you actually spend doing what you might have gotten into business to do, and how much behind the scenes things that you end up doing that's just strictly the business part, as far as accounting and different things like that. So that's our biggest thing that we tell the high school students and other people that we talk to, is that business classes can go a long way in really a lot of fields, and having a willingness to learn, because it is a lot of trial and error, and learning that you need to do different things or do things differently, just being able to learn as you go and to be corrected in different things. But business is the biggest part of what we do as business owners.
And one of the things that we are learning throughout our career, our business, is learning what you're not good at, and get to a point where you can delegate that to someone else and pay for that service so that you can spend more time on your craft.
Like bookkeeping, for instance. Neither one of us as artists are very mathematically minded. And so getting to a point in our business where we're able to hire another small business to be able to do our bookkeeping for us has been invaluable, both for us to focus more on what we are good at, and also to be able to safely hand that off to someone else that is their area of expertise.
And other silly things about, like, we have a studio. Somebody comes by the studio every 2 weeks and cleans the studio, because I literally never make time for it because I'm in front of the computer most of the time. But yeah, you would be surprised on how much percentage-wise
we actually spend
shooting. It's probably, I would say, 7 or 8% of our business.
I was going to say 20.
Shooting? I probably spend around 20% editing, 20 to 30% editing.
Or 40.
Or 40.
And that is the benefit of running a business with your spouse.
Yeah.
They know you more
I
than
spend a lot of time editing. I live in front of Lightroom and Photoshop. But if it wasn't for her, I'm adding the percentages of both of us, because she's on the phone with people. She's responding to emails. She's coming up with responses. She's coming up with quotes. She's coming up with promotions. She's doing Facebook and Instagram posts. And then she's also running a house with 2 small children, and trying to make meals for everybody and trying to balance all that out. So
it sounds like you guys have plenty of time.
Plenty
of time for fun things. Going back into the photography side, because we can kind of dive into business details all day.
Yep.
What do you guys shoot with the same camera, or do you have like two? I guess what I'm trying to ask is everything the same, or is one a Nikon fan and one like a Canon fan? How do you deal with that?
You can tell that beginning story.
So we have a joke that we had no prenuptial agreements when we got married, except when it came to camera equipment.
She actually wrote it out, and I signed it.
Because I had Canon equipment at the time. Canon and Nikon have been for the longest time kind of the top 2 professional cameras. Sony has come into the picture a lot more in the last about 10 or 15 years with the video and the quality that they're putting out, but it used to kind of be just Canon and Nikon were the top 2 for pros. So when we got married, I had all higher end, middle to higher end Canon cameras and lenses. I had a pretty good lineup.
She had a full setup.
And Shane had Nikon, and so it was the debate, if we were going to do this together, it makes a lot more sense for us to be able to share gear if we were the same brand. And so I made him sign that if I switched to Nikon, that I would get the equivalent of all the different equipment that I had. So when we started, I actually had better equipment than Shane. And
yeah, we replaced her stuff with what would be considered the current gear. Mm-hmm. And she actually had one of her lenses was better than mine. Her camera body was better than mine.
And that's our biggest investment in our business, besides, of course, rent and utilities at our storefront location, is our equipment. I mean, we have insurance policies specifically just on our equipment, because we have over the years built our systems that we have 2 very, very similar. He has right now, it kind of goes back and forth. Usually Shane has a little bit of the higher end, newer camera. And then when he gets a newer camera, I get his a little bit older camera, as in like a year or 2, not ancient. But we all have duplicate lenses, which is very important for us, specifically for weddings, because we need to bring our best game to that day, because it is something that cannot be replicated. And so we have gear that is not only weather sealed for different situations, and really good for low light situations as well. That if one of our lenses were to break or one of our cameras were to break, we bring backup gear for our gear with us so that we are prepared, you know, in any and every situation, because we have lenses that cost $2,000 to repair them. It's like $700. And so we need to be able to have something if that breaks during a shoot to replace that and be able to keep going without a hiccup.
That is something that professional photographers should always do, but professional and actual professionals are two different things. And you can tell by the way they answer that question about do they have backup gear and how they would handle if their camera broke at a wedding or a shoot. But to answer your actual question, she shoots a lighter weight Nikon camera that has a high-end sensor, and I shoot a heavier one because I can handle it. But she has a broken finger on one of her hands, and it starts wearing on you after an 8 to 10 hour wedding. So she's doing this 5 hours in if she's shooting with mine. So we got her a lighter body.
One of the things that I'd like to dive into a little bit, and it sounds kind of interesting, is did you have an issue with a camera breaking or a lens breaking?
Oh, of course.
Did you pre-plan of, okay, this could happen, or was that like a learning experience where, you know, something broke and you didn't have anything to back up with?
Knock on Macintosh. No, we actually have learned through our photography communities, through Facebook and whatever, a lot of really rookie mistakes that we probably could have exposed ourselves to if we weren't paying attention.
It's always been important for us, specifically at weddings. I feel like on a family shoot or a senior shoot, if something went wrong, we could either run back and get whatever had broke or be able to reschedule those sessions, which we haven't done because we do have backup gear. But in those situations with weddings, I mean, even back when I started, I would borrow my dad's camera or I would borrow a friend's camera to have a backup camera at the wedding so that if something happened, it would break. We actually, when we first started shooting weddings,
the first year we started shooting, I think,
we each had our own cameras, and then we borrowed one from a friend so that we did have a backup camera. And
I was using that camera because it was a higher end sensor. So I was like wanting to try it out anyway. So, and I was shooting a lens also that was a little better than the quality of mine. And because I was borrowing it, it had the connection that goes to my monopod, which is a stick that has a connection on that.
Like a tripod.
It's like a tripod, but it's one leg. Anyway, it steadies out your shot. And I was shooting it, this wedding party out in this vineyard, and it was beautiful. And I knew I'd gotten a shot, and I pulled the monopod this way.
He likes to carry stuff over his arm like this, which terrifies me.
Anyway, I go, we got it, guys. But I was in the middle of the road, and the camera went that way.
And it broke.
Except
not where it's supposed to come apart, the lens and the camera.
Part of the lens stayed on the camera and most of the lens stayed off, and then the camera.
It was devastating, one, because we broke an expensive piece of equipment, on two, it was also a friend of ours. But the whole wedding party was kind of like, and we were like, it's okay. It was not okay, but it was even before the wedding. But we just grabbed our other camera that we had and put that one away, and continued. And it's actually one of our portfolio weddings, even from, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago, that we still love. So
yes, we have backup for cameras, we have backup for flashes, we have backup for batteries, backup for memory cards, backup for strobes, whatever. So
you mentioned a photography community, and that kind of helped you prepare for things that could happen, and kind of give you some tips and advice. If I was looking to get into that community, where would I start?
So Facebook, in the last, whatever Facebook has been around, has been a huge part of building more of a community than people we actually know. We started our business in Portland, and Shane had lived there for quite a long time and worked for different photographers.
And I had a huge group of people that are photographers that I actually physically hung out with. and then I moved up here, and we live kind of secluded in the ways of the being, you know,
Yeah.
in Yelm. So getting to know people through online groups that are South Sound or Northwest, or
Are there any specific ones that you can mention here?
South Sound Portrait Photographers is a big group of, you know, and the range of expertise, I guess, would range from, you know, people just starting out to, you know, people like us that have studio storefronts and do this full time. And those are really great communities. I mean, we've had quite a few friends in the Yelm area that have started and, you know, gotten a little bit bigger. There's studio inspiration groups. I mean, there's all kinds of different places. And I mean, we highly encourage people, if they're interested in photography, to talk to us. We've had seniors from Yelm High School, from Tenino High School, several high schools in the area that kind of intern with us. We don't have any official intern programs, but a lot of people that are interested in photography, even moms, have worked with us as assistants. So a lot of times we will go on a big shoot with our lights and such, and we'll need someone there just to hold a light.
But I usually explain why and how that's all making sense for why we're using this light and why we're using this certain modifier.
But it just kind of helps get people introduced into what it looks like to be on a photo session, and it's kind of the education in exchange for you going with us to help. So that's something that we're always open to, people just going along with us to see what we do and be able to help us out in return.
And you have a brick and mortar location on Yelm Avenue. It's right in plain sight, but if people wanted to reach out to you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely our studio, Shane is usually there in normal circumstances.
The rule is if the green open sign over the door is on, the door will almost always be locked, because the semis at that part of the corridor, intersection, whatever, it's like a suction thing, and it actually blows our door open. And then our posters that are in the window are large prints. They move all around. So the door will be mostly locked. So ring the doorbell or call the phone number, and I will come out, or we can at least arrange a time to meet up. So.
And we are, of course, all over social media. We have an Instagram account, Facebook account, our website. Everything that we have is Images by Brant. So Twitter, Facebook, our website. And Brant is our last name, although Shane will go by Brant. That happens quite often.
When I first called you guys, I think I asked for Brant.
Yep.
So
a lot of people do. When we rebranded our company, when we first started, our business name was We Shoot For Them, which we thought was kind of fun. But it was a little bit long and didn't really specify like who we were or what we did. And so when we rebranded, we went through a lot of names and did a lot of polls of friends and family and online to figure out. And so Images by Brant to us made sense because we are Shane and Tia Brant, but just never thinking through that Brant is a first name as well. And because Shane is a little bit of the face of our company, he's at the studio at chamber meetings and that sort of thing. I'm a little bit more behind the scenes. He has become Brant over the years, but yeah, Images by Brant, BRANT, no Y or D or any of that fancy stuff.com is our website, as well as all of our social.
It's all right. My dad's studio name was D period because his first name was Dale, and people call him D or D Brant, and he was like, hi. So I'm used to it.
We'll answer by that.
And what do you recommend students do now to really hone in their skills, or if someone's thinking about, buying that entry-level camera and getting started, what are the first things that you would recommend doing?
So there's the business part, but if they just want to get better at photography, obviously, YouTube and tutorial websites and all of that, and looking at Instagram. And
there's a lot of photographers that do instruction that have started out as professional photographers and then have realized that there's so many people that want to be in this industry. There's a lot of bigger names out there that are not only great photographers, but also do great tutorials, like he was saying, on YouTube and other
But
places.
my biggest advice is shoot.
Take pictures.
Take lots of photos and just keep doing it until until you feel like you understand why your camera is doing. Know your gear, know your light if you are using a light, and just keep on building on that. One of my major advice also is don't start charging money until you actually have the skill level that's worthy of charging money. Don't have somebody pay you for you to learn on them. You know what I mean?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, we have so many photographer friends that are like, I have no idea how to do this or what I'm doing, but I'm going to shoot the wedding or I'm going to shoot this high school senior, and they want me to do this and this, and I'm like, well, then borrow someone, a friend, and test that out before you get into it. Don't.
I mean, we even still do that with where we're at in our business. We've done powder paint shoots, which is kind of like the Holy Festival where they throw the powder paint to be able to get those really neat, colorful powdered photos. And before we did it with our client, we took my sister and threw paint at her to be able to figure out what we
wanted for how to toss the powder, how to light the powder, how to light the subject, how the cleanup setup would be. I mean, there's so much different things to it that you shouldn't be learning this stuff on a client.
And the biggest part, like we said before, as far as schooling is the business part of it too. But like we said, interning with someone to find out what really is involved in it. And then also understanding light is a huge part of photography. Everybody says, oh, you have a great camera, you must take great pictures, or, you have a big camera, you must take great pictures, or if you can take action shots, you must be a great photographer. But there's a whole nother ballgame when it comes to lighting, and that's really what sets a lot of our work apart, because we use, I'm going to turn this around just for 1 second here. We use huge studio lights. This is what's making Shane and I look so beautiful. This is one of our big studio lights here that we set up just to be able to see it.
That was a great example, because there's light coming and it's coming and hitting your face, versus if it's backlit, you could barely see Shane's face, and it's really about that angle.
Oh,
so.
and that's funny because
now it turned off.
It turned off because it ran out of batteries. So there you go. This is actually, I'll turn off all these lights, and then you can see this is how
our living room is with our regular lights.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a good timing. But this is how most people do their photography. They don't care that these eye sockets are dead. Like you can't tell what color eyes she has now. She has beautiful green eyes. You can't tell. And I have beautiful brown eyes. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's try. So going back to a camera, what ways can you challenge yourself? Like, taking it off automatic mode, maybe putting it in manual, things like that, maybe?
Yeah. So when I first started professionally shooting or getting that realm, I went from the program or auto, those are interchangeable words. And I started shooting on shutter priority or aperture priority, because you can tell what you didn't have to know everything, but it would
push you a little
bit more of why you're putting those in those certain modes and why you're using a certain aperture or shutter speed. Then I started dabbling with when it didn't matter as much and I can take my time, and especially with digital. Back in the day, I was shooting with film, so like it cost me money every time I took a picture. Versus if with digital, you can look at the back of the screen and go, okay, that was a wrong exposure.
The learning curve is a lot shorter.
The learning curve is so much shorter. So that's the other thing about this industry, is that there's a lot of people that didn't put in their dues because they learned on the back of their camera, which is great. But now they don't have the skills to understand why everything is happening. They just look at the back of the camera. Back into my day, I could literally look at your face and say, that's going to be f5.6 at 180th of a second, and it will be proper exposed. And I can guarantee most photographers nowadays, I would ask them what the exposure is on my hand, and they would have no idea. So I don't know if that matters anymore, really, but
if you want to pull up one of the photos that you have, Andrew, maybe the volleyball player or the welder, we could maybe talk through what one of those look like.
So with that photo, there's the light that you just saw that we turned the camera to. That was the one that's lighting her face.
So as you can see, the sun is setting or almost completely set. So the darkness that you see in the background was really what we were dealing with. It was pretty dark. This is at the end of a senior session, and we knew we wanted to get some dramatic lighting. And so we had kind of envisioned this idea of an action shot with kind of some unique lighting. And so we did this at the very end of the session as the light was pretty much not really there anymore. So without our studio lights that we bring with us that are battery powered, we would not be able to shoot this shot at all.
We would be done. So what I do for a shot like this, I expose for the background with no lights. I get that glow that I want
in the camera,
the back of the camera. And then I add my main light exposed for her face. And then I add that rim light, that blue light that's hitting the net and the back of her leg. Because I like that it draws you in with the color scheme that's behind her.
So it's just a regular white light that has kind of a blue film on it, it's called a gel, but it's really kind of a transparency that has a blue color to it.
Anyway, this is something that separates us from most photographers. They don't know how to use strobes, and they don't know how to gel lights, and also how to balance those colors to make them look complementary, I guess.
Yeah, and you can tell by looking at that picture, a picture like that, not everyone can take that shot. So, I'm glad we were able to pull that up. Coming down to the wire here, is there anything else that you would like to add? Little bits of advice to a senior or anything else?
Shane and I did not get into this to make money. That's one of the things that some people say, I'm going to go into business for myself, and I'm going to bring home all the money. And with something like photography, sometimes that can be like a glamorous type job that, you're going to travel the world. That's what I thought when I started. I wanted to take landscape pictures and work for National Geographic and travel the world. Kind of like Shane, come to find out that's a very narrow field to try and get into. But we got into it for the love of photography, which we've tried really hard, like we mentioned before, to be unique and to stand out and to challenge ourselves all the time, because as artists, that's why we love to do what we do, and I think it does show in our work. And so if you have something that you love to do, I highly encourage people to try and make it into a career. A lot of times the road is really long. Like I said, we started this 10 years ago. We went full-time 7 years ago, and we've had the studio only for 4 years. And the very first year of having the studio literally was the slowest, most depressing, just crickets. And then 11-month period happened into our first year of opening our studio, and it hasn't stopped. Which is a huge blessing for us. But we encourage people to go after what they're excited about, to try and figure out how to make that into a career, whether it is, vocational training, internships, whatever it is, to try and figure that out. It was really important for me before I went to school to know what I wanted to go to school to do. And so, I tried out some, interim programs and some different things to try and figure out before I was like, this is what I know I want to do. And now I'm going to go, forward with that. And so that's something I think that we really encourage high school students is if you have something that you love, then push to make it something that you can do. But understand that sometimes in certain careers that you won't spend all of your time doing that, and that you're not going to instantly make money, doing those sort of things. That there's a lot of behind the scenes, and there's a lot of groundwork and education that goes into becoming a professional in your field.
One of my biggest, or another part of that advice is if you're wanting to make money off this, start with a different job, have a income, however that is.
Like I said, we both worked in retail camera stores, which was still kind of in that field, but that was our 9 to 5, 40 hour.
So have
job.
a full-time job and start dipping your toe in the pool. Don't jump head in until you're ready. A lot of people drown and burn out so quickly because they have to make money.
So
I have to make
on.
money. And it shouldn't be about that. It should be about, like, how can I bless my community? How could I make images that we're proud of? That kind of thing. But the other thing I want to say is that interning, however you can do it, even if you're not going into photography world, helping and studying under people is how I got anywhere to where I am. And it wasn't my dad. It was but
by osmosis.
By osmosis. And I also assisted him when I was actually trying to learn. But then I went to college, and that got me my foot in the door for a commercial photographer that taught me way more than 4 years of college in like 3 months.
We both did go to school for photography.
So he actually taught me lighting and commercial lighting and how to do different things that are a lot more technical. And I also learned some of the back end stuff, like she's talking about. File management on a computer is not something people talk about, but it's a big part of what I do.
Yeah, it's not sexy.
No, it's not sexy at all.
But it's so important.
So anyway, so that's something I would suggest. If whatever career you're going into, find somebody that you think is worthy of learning from and approach them.
And I think Yelm is a great community for that. I mean, as shown by the people that are doing these Zoom meetings for the high school students, there's a lot of great people in our community that are open to, meeting with and chatting with and helping younger people or people that are newer in our different industries be able to learn and grow.
When I know I've used you as a resource, and when I needed a tripod, you were there to give me a tripod. When I called you and asked you how to shoot something, the help that you've given me, I can attest to that. So anybody listening to this now or in the future, go pay them a visit, go bug them, knock on the door, go take a look at some of their pictures. I encourage it because
we like to be there. We're here to help. I didn't learn this to hold it to myself. I learned it so that the art of photography would raise that bar again. So
awesome. Well, hey, Tia, Shane, thanks again for joining us today, and we appreciate it. And I'm sure I'll see you as soon as this quarantine ends.
Absolutely, we are looking forward to being back in the community.
Me too. All right. Well, you guys take care, stay safe, and I'll see you around.
All right, brother. See you
All
later.
Right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.